Hi. Thank you, Lisa. How are you guys? You don't have to answer. I'm okay. Oh, I didn't know there'd be so many of you. If I knew there were so many of you, I would have asked for more money for this. But shit, man. This is great, and I want you. There's so many things I want you to know about me, and this is really only our first date, so we don't know how it's going to go. I just wanted you to know that I'm not an anti-masker or anything. I just I have a hard enough time. It's difficult. You understand how hard life is for me. I had COVID 2 months ago, and I'm actually thinking of starting a truck convoy for people to wear masks rather than not wear masks. We're all born artists from the ages of 1 to 4, let's say. We all dance freely. We make up stories. We paint. We sing songs without any inhibitions. We're born artists. And then we go to school and they fuck us. You might hear that word a few more times in this lecture. Now, my wife is a teacher, and over the last 7 years, I've grown a massive appreciation that I never had before for teachers, only because I kind of got the short end of the stick with a learning disability that I had, that in the 70s and 60s, nobody was interested in hearing about that, so I kind of trotted along through school until I got out. But my point being that any kind of institution, organization, anything with a cross on top of it or a Walmart sign out in front of it is working really hard to control us. And we, as individuals, as free spirits, as vibrant human beings, and as people working to be artists, have nothing to do with that world. We all need bread and we all need to pick up a few things, but that's really not what we're about. We're about our independence, and we're about our free spirit and our freedom to be able to express ourselves. For probably most of you in the room, including myself, that's really what we live for. It's our lifeblood, and it's what we thrive to do every day. So my belief is when I was 4 years old, I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. And I thought I was the only guy that saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show until later on in life when I found out that everybody my age saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. But I ran to the kitchen and I grabbed a broom and I wanted to be a Beatle and I wanted to be a musician. And I saw what they did and how it resonated with people. And I didn't see that. I didn't have the ability to step into an art gallery, and I didn't have the ability to step into a theater with an opera or go to a play. I wasn't able to see how art resonates with people or the excitement that we can generate in people through our art. So I wanted to do something like them. I wanted to make girls scream in the audiences. Which never really happened, because, well, look at me. And I also, I wanted to have a job in my life where I was able to create things to be able to communicate with people. So I did want to become a musician, and I did everything in my power to keep that dream intact, regardless of my own personal experience in school. So my belief is everyone who's sitting here, everybody with an artist's heart, everybody who feels vibrant and alive because of the chance to be able to wake up tomorrow and create something for the world that wasn't there yesterday, each and every one of us are trying to become that 3-year-old self. And how many times, I'm going to say this especially to men, have you heard, why'd you grow up? Maybe gals have heard it too, but I know I've usually heard that coming from women, but mostly in my marriages. But You know, that whole Peter Pan syndrome, you know, we all got to figure out how to pay our bills, and we all got to figure out how to brush our teeth and make sure that, you know, our armpits are clean. But really what we want to do is become that three-year-old self. I go around and I lecture at colleges and universities that somehow they let me into. I mean, I never would have had the opportunity to attend any of these institutions. I never would have been able to, you know, reach the enrollment requirements in my life, but somehow they hire me and pay me money to go and speak to people. The world is completely screwed, isn't it? And what I've said in front of audiences, because I somehow write books, I get to talk to English students and literary departments and creative writers, and I get to go to colleges like Fanshawe, and I get to talk about music and songwriting. And the one thing I say when I enter those rooms, and I'm going to say it to you, and I mean I got some backlash for it, and I'm going to have to clarify it with a little bit of a sidecar here, but if you don't have to do this, don't do it, because there's nothing that you really have to offer the world that the world wants to have. You're going to make people suffer with what you create unless you have a burning desire to do it. Now here is the sidecar to that. I don't mean for your whole goddamn life. I just mean tomorrow when you wake up. If you don't feel that, do something else. It's nice weather, maybe start gardening, do something else. But when that burning desire is in us, and I look at every one of you if I can, and I know that that morning comes and that burning desire rises in you and makes you want to create something. You want to create pottery, or you want to write a song, or you want to paint, or you want to draw, or you have an idea that you didn't have when you went to sleep the day before. And that's the magic of our existence. That's the magic of the existence of we have created for ourselves, sometimes some of us without even knowing it. The art that we create is not a part-time job. It actually is probably the thing that we've been thinking about throughout all of our day jobs, through all of our court cases, through all of our divorces, through all of the birth of our children and the deaths of our parents. We've been thinking about art. Don't tell anybody that. That burning desire is something that I relate to because, and I speak honestly and freely about this. I've been a musician for 47 years of my life, out playing professionally, making money. They've given me awards, and they've given me gold records. Between you and I'm actually not much of a musician, okay? I'm not a very good guitar player. I'm a terrible piano player. I can't play the drums at all. And if, you know, 4 or 5 of us in this room got together tonight and said, hey, come on over for a jam, Tom, I would be the guy probably, you know, tuning your guitars for you, because I'm not that guy that can be a musician that way. But I have a burning desire to write music and write songs, and that's why I'm still doing it, unfortunately or fortunately. I'm not an artist, a visual artist. I can't draw. I couldn't draw a chair, but I have a burning desire to put shapes and color onto canvases and onto sculptures. That overrides my lack of ability to me. I also am dyslexic, so I have great difficulty reading books, but somehow I managed to write a book. Somehow it managed to become a bestseller. It's just been turned into a movie. I can't really read that book to you from front to back right here. In fact, they asked me when they were, I still am a voiceover guy, by the way. And just close your eyes for a minute. You know my voice. Close your eyes just for 1 sec. It's not what you're eating. It's what your dog's eating. Kibbles and bits. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, one more time, and please, I know it. I want you to be wherever I go. I'll close your eyes, I'll do one more for You Don't Hate Me. There's some things in this world you can still count on. McDonald's quarter pounder with cheese. So I've done a lot of voiceover work. I voiced over a documentary. I actually stepped in for David Suzuki and did a Nature of Things a couple times. I've done GMC trucks. I've done Pontiac cars. I've done a lot of voiceover work. So when my book was finished, I went in for a meeting at my publisher's, Penguin Random House. They said, everything's going great, and we're looking forward to it. We're sending you out on this book tour. You're going to be doing literary festivals. You said, we're really excited for you, and we've got somebody to read your audio book. I said, wait a minute. What are you talking about? Oh, we've got this guy in New York. He does all the books. I said, no. I said, I'm the book guy. And then I said, have you ever heard these commercials before? I had to read something like 130,000 words. I forget how long my book is. I sat in a studio for 5 days reading my own book. And I started off really great. It started off with, I remember waking up in a bedroom with some stuffed toys around me, ragged old things. And by the third page it was, and then I was completely broken down. I had to concentrate so hard for 4 days that I left the recording studio and went straight to get Botox in my forehead because my forehead was so wrinkled from concentrating. So the desire, this is what we're talking about. We're talking, for me right now, about burning desire. So, can I read you a book? No, I can't. Can I write you a book? Well, give me some time and I'll do that for you. Can I paint you a chair? No, I can't. Can I paint you a warrior with 2 heads? Yes, I can do that. Can we get together and play, a Rush album front to back? No way can I do that, but can I write you a song in the next half hour? Probably can do that. The thing about what I have hung my hat on is not on technical skill, and I liken it to the same differences between the Eagles, the band the Eagles, and the Ramones. The Eagles are a really great band, but they're taking Buck Owens and Merle Haggard and the Flying Burrito Brothers and Graham Parsons and those kind of mid-career Rolling Stone albums, Exile on Main Street and Let It Bleed. They're taking all those ingredients and they're just doing that. The Ramones, I swear to God, not one of us heard anything on this planet the time we put that first Ramones album on, and we all said, what is this shit? And now it's a fabric of our being. It's on every hockey game that we watch. It's in TV commercials. It is the mainstream. That's creating art to me. The Eagles are a great band, but they didn't create anything that wasn't already there for us to digest. The Ramones made something out of desperation, out of the need to be heard, and out of burning desire. So when we think about what it is we want to create, it's important. It's important for a lot of us to gather these skills, to be able to find the skills to achieve what we want to achieve. And then, some of us just take, a handful of paint and rub it across a canvas and turn it into something. And they're both wonderful ways to go through this life. It's just, there's a big difference between the two. So I'm not telling you to be an Eagle or a Ramone, but if you have the chance to be a Ramone, I bet it's a lot more fun than working with Don Henley for 50 years, okay? Being an artist or attempting to be an artist, this is an important part of my lecture here today too, is that surviving as an artist, or wanting to be an artist, is really what I want to talk about. I don't stand here and say that I'm an artist. I have no business being here at an art school as fine as this, with people as fine as you, telling you anything about art. I don't pretend to know anything that you don't. In fact, when I go to colleges and talk about songwriting, I approach people with complete respect. Because in my mind, the person that could be in the audience that I could co-write the song that, you know, puts all the fish back in the ocean and fills up the ozone layer could be in the room. So I approach you with complete respect, and you on the same level or greater level than I will ever be. I never want to be an artist. I always want to be working at becoming an artist. The journey, as we all know, is way more exciting than actually arriving into the station. I think we can all agree on that. I mean, it's okay to stick your painting up on the wall and have a look at it, but think about the journey that you took to get there. Isn't that what we live for? I think it's what we live for. Now, I'm going to, I forgot your name again. Lisa. I was going to call you Leslie. This is Lisa, everybody. Do you know Lisa? You might know Lisa. Lisa has the terrible job of taking care of the visual presentation of my lecture today. And in doing that, it reminds me of, you know, when our teachers used to like wheel in the overhead projector for us, you know, and they thought it was cool, and we always thought they were idiots for thinking that was cool. So, Lisa, could we go to section number 2 of photographs? This is going to be, 2. Okay. That's okay. So we're just gonna. That's good. I don't know. Actually, I don't know how they show up, but we're gonna take a crack at this, Lisa. This is gonna be great. You notice the big number 2. I said that I mentioned that I was dyslexic, right? So, in order for me to understand that this is the second file of photographs, the 2 had to be fairly big. I started painting in 1997. This is one of the first paintings I ever did. 1997 was a crazy year for me. I had been on the road with a rock and roll band all over the world, banging out songs and getting into mischief. I wanted to quit drinking in 1997. It was the second time that I attempted to stop drinking, and I had 2 options when I wanted to stop drinking in 1997. I could stop drinking and just take way more of all the other drugs that I used to love to do. That was option number 1. Or I could take that destructive energy, that destructive nature that I had, and try and do something productive with it. So I started painting, and I kind of liked it. It kind of took my time away from the bottle. I was writing a record for Sony Music at the time, and I'd spend my days, I'm a dutiful worker. I'm a bit of a workaholic, in fact. I know to look at me, you figure I get up at about 1 in the afternoon and, you know, watch The Price is Right and smoke a joint and think about having dinner, right? But I actually, I've always kind of been an overachiever, and I'm up usually about 5:30 with my dog, and yeah, I drive my wife crazy, let's just say that. So I start painting in 97 to fill up that void. And at the time, people were coming over to my house, charitable organizations, asking me to sign CDs for their auctions. And the very first people that came over was a women's shelter who came to my home. They said, would you mind signing some CDs for us? And I'd be sitting signing CDs, and I'd say, do you want a painting? And they say, yes, we like a painting. So they'd take the paintings and they'd auction the paintings off. And that's what I did for the first year in 1997, the first year of my attempt at sobriety and my first attempt at painting, right? So we can go to another picture now, Lisa. We can move on to another one of these. Oh, there's a humdinger. You can just see how I actually don't know how to paint in this particular photograph. Wow, that deserves a sip of coffee for sure. I didn't know what these paintings might be worth, so I just gave them away. And then I was asked to do a show in Toronto, Ontario. A guy I went to high school with named Stuart Pollock, who was a complete character, opened up a gallery, in Toronto, and he was the toast of the town. You'd open up the Globe and Mail, and they'd have reviews on his gallery. And you know, you'd open up like Canadian art magazines, and they'd talk about Stuart Pollock and his gallery. And it was like kind of a hip place to be. And he called me up. He says, "Hey," he says, "you paint, right?" And I said, "Yeah, well, I don't know, but I do paintings." He goes, "Well," he says, "I want to put together a show with Daniel Lanois and Michael Stipe from REM and the late now Long John Baldry. And I want you to be in part of it, and I want you guys to do your painting. I want to be able to show that the arts are not just, if you're a painter, you're a painter. If you're a writer, you're a writer. If you're an actor, that's all you do. You know, that the arts and the creative energy that we try to lasso every day can go anywhere." So I said, "Yeah, sure." So I brought my paintings in. Let's see another one of these gems. Yeah. Okay, I like that one actually a lot. So I brought in these paintings, and I said, "Okay, well, here are the paintings." He goes, "Well, what do you charge for these?" I said, "Oh, I don't know. I usually give them away. How about $500? And he said, $500? He goes, "I can't make any money selling art for $500. Look where I am. I'm on Queen Street West. My rent's insane." And he went around to my paintings, and he went, $3,700, $4,200, $6,000. I don't know. Anyways, all the paintings sold. So I kept on painting. Just one more side story. You know what? I'm already almost a half hour into this lecture, and I'm nowhere near the end of this thing. So I hope that you guys are going to hang in there with me. So the very first painting, the one I told you about, this is about my mystical, magical life. I want to tell you a little bit about. The very first painting I did, which you saw up there, that I gave to that women's shelter in Hamilton for them to raise money for their cause. Let's flash back to 1981. I'm out playing in punk rock tours. I'm out touring with Teenage Head. I'm in this band, the Florida Razors. And where I live now, across the street, I'm dating this girl. And around 4 in the morning, before her parents would wake up, I'd get dressed and I'd go out the back door, and they had this giant Afghan that used to chase me out of the house, out of the backyard, down this hill. I'd run across the street, and there's like this old stone wall in front of my house, and I'd jump behind the stone wall and I'd hide from the dog until the dog disappeared. And I'd look at that house in 1981. I'm 21 years old, and I said to myself, you know what, if I ever make any money, I'm gonna buy that house. Then I'm married, in my second marriage, my second wife and I are looking for a house in Hamilton. That house comes up for sale, the one that I said I wanted to buy. I walked into the house, stepped inside, looked to my left, and on the wall inside my living room was the first painting that I ever did. Now you really think I'm something, I can tell. So these paintings, and we can go to another painting, Lisa. Okay, that's one. That's another one. You can see that I'm sticking with the same style there. But I actually like these paintings. There's something just so, to me, primitive for me. And they were doing exactly what I wanted to do to start my painting, which was I wanted to paint simple images that if I was to hold this up for you a block away on here, downtown Dundas, and I said, what was that? And you'd say, well, it looks like an eye and a nose and a mouth. It looks like a face. Got it. Or if I showed it to one of my grandsons, if I showed it to a 1.5-year-old, I said, what's this? They'd say, oh, no, that's a face, of course. That was my intent. Let's go to another one. Okay, so this is just a little bit later. This is a giant painting. This is probably about 8 feet by 6 feet. I figured out that as a writer, I wanted another vehicle for my work. And so I got a knife, and I started, instead of just scraping textures into the paintings, I started carving words and designs into the paintings. Can you see that okay? Yeah. So now all of a sudden, I felt that I had even a greater reason to want to paint was because I could use these paintings as another outlet for my writing. It's so important. Let's go to another one, Lisa. We're really knocking. There's another one. Okay, this one. If you come to my house, and you're all welcome, 30 Amelia Street, anytime you want. I'm off coffee for one a week. Usually I'm drinking tea now, but I'll offer you a cup of tea. And if you come into my dining room, this is a 10-foot by 4-foot painting, and it's got all the writing in it as well. There you go. Can you see that okay? Yeah. So now I have this great outlet for my own writing. The other thing that I'm finding, Lisa, we can go to another painting, I think. Okay, we'll just hold off on that one for a sec. So the other thing about the paintings now I'm applying art onto the canvases with my hands. I paint with my hands still to this day, and then I put the detail in. And as I'm doing this detail, I'm starting to achieve something that I haven't been able to do in my entire life, which is sit and be able to get into some meditative state. I'm like this giant man. I'm shrinking, but I was about 6'3" in my prime, and I'm probably knocking in about 240 pounds. My friend Mark Rogers would probably say more like 270. But you know, so I'm about 230, 40 pounds, and I'm really hyper. So I have it's almost impossible for me to sit on a cushion and ring a bell and be able to, you know, just sit. Painting for me is my meditation. Don, you have a studio right beside me. I'm the quietest guy in the building because when I'm painting, I can completely get lost. In fact, what I've been doing lately is I've been taking new writings from the second book that I'm writing and finding a page in my computer and starting to write. And as I start to write, I get into this stream of consciousness where the writing starts to evolve from the place that it started. And as a result, I have to go back to the paintings and then transcribe what I wrote in the paintings back into my files for my book. It's weird. But that's an important part of the process that I'm not emphasizing enough, that, you know, that the circular motion of our creative process, that we can feed, you know, so many outlets for what we're doing with what we have to offer. This is a picture, okay, so I went to rehab for alcohol and drugs in '99, and then I was renting a bachelor apartment. I basically had lost pretty well everything in my life, my family, my houses, all of my money, my cars, everything was gone. I drove my life completely into the ditch. I just need to mention that this December 12th, I'll be 23 years clean and sober. Thank you. And I was also broke, so I couldn't afford canvases, so I just started taking my apartment apart. And this is like the, I'm not a carpenter, the board, what do they call them? The floorboards. This is a floorboard that I started taking. I started taking wood off of different trims around the apartment and using them to paint on. That's owned by a guy in Blue Rodeo now, so that's cool. Next one, and we'll see one more of these. Okay, there's another one. That was a piece of floor that I just tore up and painted that on. I got thrown out of that apartment eventually. So let's go over to row number 3, please, Lisa. And everyone's going to see the 3. Ah, there it is. Nothing like a dyslexic giving a lecture, eh? Okay, things have come along, I have to say. I'm actually, this is one of my, I'm proud of this piece. It sits in my studio down at the Cotton Factory. This is where the images went. They turned into more colorful with face paint and even, well, my daughter started to look at these and about 15 years ago, and she goes, Dad, she goes, you have to stop painting these. This is cultural appropriation. And I'm a knucklehead from Hamilton, right? So I said, Well, I don't even know what that means. She goes, well, it's when you take someone else's culture, you take all the beauty and the colors, and you use it for your own means to make money or to become famous or whatever. I said, well, I don't know. This is just what's coming out of me. About 10 years after she told me that, I actually found out that I was adopted and that I wasn't the big, puffy, sweaty Irish guy I always thought I was, and I'm actually a Mohawk. So that's my second mystical, magical story that I'm going to tell you today. If everybody could just go, oh. Let's go. Lisa, hit the next one, baby. So these are from a show that I had out at the art gallery, Burlington Art Gallery of Burlington, called Mohawk Hunters, Warriors, and Chiefs. And that was the first public show that I ever had. And what I wanted to do and what I had decided after finding out that I was adopted and finding out that I was a Mohawk was now it was my job to find out more about my own culture, about my own home. I had to find out about the colors and the sounds and the stories and the medicines that I'd missed out on for 54 years. By the way, I didn't find out that I was adopted until I was 54 years old. That's my job, because I have to, unlike my brothers and my sisters who grew up on the reserve in Ganawage outside Montreal, I didn't come to the culture naturally. I'm finding my own way. So now I'm painting images and telling stories inside those images that are strictly related to Ganawage, my homeland, the reserve that I'm from. So this is one of the chiefs. Now, we're not going to be able to see this. You don't have to blow it up because we'll get the idea, but this is all writing in here, okay? That tells a story. And these colors up here, those are all stories. That's all writing. And even inside the paint, this blue in here, that's all writing. So besides ADHD and dyslexia, I'm also rather obsessive compulsive, I guess. Let's go to the next one, Lisa. There's a bigger version. Now, this is a painting that ended up hanging on the side of the CBC building. And I just want to point something out here. Not that you're that interested. Actually, I don't know what you're interested in. If you want me to talk about something else, I'm getting paid the same, so you know, we can discuss anything. Remember I told you that I was writing all of my images and all of the script in a knife. Well, when they asked me to do a painting, they wanted a painting 3 stories high on the side of the CBC building. And I said, well, they said, how much is that going to cost? And I said, I don't know, I've never done anything like that. And then I had to explain that I'm actually not much of a painter, but you know, I'd try to do this for them. But I'm going to need a warehouse, and I'm going to need a staff, and I'm going to need a lot. It's probably going to cost you about $250,000, $300,000, which they did not admit that they had. So they told me how much they did have, and I said, well, listen, why don't I just do a painting for you, and you guys blow it up on vinyl, and that's it, we're done. They liked that idea. So what I realized, though, with a painting that's 3, you know, it's like up, it's probably about 3 stories high, and it goes up 3 stories, if you're walking along the street, you're not going to be able to see what I carved into the painting. So what I did was I found these oil markers, which was like a revelation to me, but I was able to write all the detail now with these oil markers, and I could do them in different colors. And people still couldn't read them from the street, but at least they knew it was there. Let's go to another painting. Okay, that's this one is called Oka, and it's a picture of one of my brothers who fought in the Oka crisis against the Canadian Army. My brother Kyle and my brother Christopher both fought the Canadian Army at that time over a land dispute. We all remember that land dispute, don't we? Yeah. So I had to do, once again, as I say, I'm doing something to honor not only my culture, but also honor the struggles, the conflicts, and the issues that face my family and my ancestors. This one I had to paint because during the Oka crisis in 1991, I was at home in Hamilton on Barnsdale Boulevard. I was reading about the Oka crisis in the Globe and Mail and listening to it on national news and hearing it on the radio, CBC radio, and my blood was boiling and I didn't know why. Of course, because my blood is Mohawk blood, but while I was sitting there in Hamilton, Ontario, my brothers were sitting at their kitchen tables filling out their wills, picking up automatic weapons and going into a war that they didn't think they were coming home from. I'm never going to experience that. I'm 62 years old. Don't take a swing at me, I will go down. So this is where my work comes into play for filling in the long line that has been missed in my life. Next one, please, Lisa. And there's the original, this is my favorite painting that I've been offered a lot of money for, but I won't part with, and it's in the living room of my house, and it's giant. And this is actually, I always considered this when I started doing it. I wanted to be a self-portrait, but it ended up looking like everything else I paint. It is a self-portrait because it represents the guy who grew up at 162 East 36th Street and the guy that was taken off the reserve during the 60s scoop and away from his family and his home and his culture. So that's my favorite painting. I think I'm allowed to have one. Let's see a few more of these if there are any more. Oh, number 4. Let's see what we got. All right. This is where we want to talk about identity. When I was a young boy, I started having this dream. This is going to be the third, by the way, mystical, magical thing I tell you today. I expect a little more of a at the end of it, okay? This dream that I had when I was probably about 3 or 4 that I've been having my entire life is that I'm standing on the side of a waterway, a river, big river. It's nighttime, it's dark, I can't really see much of what's going out there. I can see a bit of a tree line, I can see the blues and the deep greens over across this river, and I want to get across the river. And my Uncle John Lazar from Ganawage. If you read my book, you know that my Uncle John actually is my grandfather. This is a story that we'll do offline. My Uncle John, my grandfather, comes to me and says, "Tom, do you want to get across the water? Get on my back." And I get on his back, and as I'm going across the water, he starts to lift up off the water. He's not swimming on the water anymore. He's starting to rise up off the water. He starts to fly, and he turns into this turtle, this giant turtle. And I ride safely. In fact, in the dream for years, I never made it to the other side. But in the last 6 years, when this dream comes to me, I actually get across the river, the body of water that's been a mystery my entire life. And I end up in Ganawage, and I realize that that body of water that I've been trying to get to my entire life is actually the St. Lawrence Seaway, going from the North Shore, the Montreal side, over to the South Shore, to the Chateauguay, Ganawage side. I haven't painted that story yet. I haven't really figured out what I want to do with that, but I know it deserves some kind of representation, as some honor on my part. But what I have done is I've started to create pieces that represent some of the story and some of the mysticism that comes from that reserve. This is a Ganawake shapeshifter. It's owned by Sony Music corporate offices in Toronto or New York now, I don't know where. But so this is obviously a warrior's head on a dog's body. This is how I paint. I have no, I can't, I just love this. I can't apologize for it not really looking like a warrior or a dog. But I can tell you that it's important. I'm going to answer your question as soon as I'm just going to say two more things. So in doing this, the shapeshifters in Ganawage, my mother talks about them, my grandfather talked about them, everybody, my sisters talk about them. There's the legend of the hoofed woman in Ganawage, which was the guy's coming home drunk, and he's been out late, and this beautiful woman comes and wants to take him out to a barn to, well, you know. And she says, come up to the hayloft. And as she goes up the stairs, he sees her feet hanging below the dress going up the ladder, and they're actually hoofs. And it's the legend of the hoofed woman, which still goes on. There's also an ongoing legend about shapeshifters, about people that can turn into animals. And it's prevalent in Ganawage. It's like a big deal. It's like, I can talk to you about it, and maybe you're going to go out into your car after this and say, what was that guy talking about? But where my people are from, that is serious shit, okay? So this is me now making the step to start to tell the stories from my reserve in my paintings. We'll go to the next one, please, Lisa. These are some fish, represent the work in the St. Lawrence River, now known as the St. Lawrence Seaway. A lot of the land in Ganawage was sold off to the Quebec government so they could dig it up and widen the river that I've been trying to get across in my dreams for all my life. So those are three fish. I like that painting a lot too. We'll go to the next one, Lisa. And this is a crow. It's funny because I was working, I just love the detail that I put into the paintings. I actually don't necessarily love the way, I'm not patting myself on the back for the way it looks. I'm actually saying I love doing it. The burning desire for me to do, and this painting is, this is just a little smaller than the actual painting. So it's a pretty big one. And it's funny because I discovered an artist who I'm actually seeing for lunch tomorrow, named Christy Belcourt, and she's a fabulous, one of the best and most well-known Indigenous artists in the world. And are you familiar with her work, Christy Belcourt? Yeah, she's phenomenal, and she's also an Indigenous rights activist. She's Métis. Her father was a lawyer and an arbitrator. He was a fighter for Métis rights with the Canadian government. So maybe this is a bit of a tip of the hat to her, because I'm never getting to where she is. Okay, next one. And there's the fish. That was up in my house before I sold it. So, okay. We'll go to the next section here. Number 5, folks. I'm going to let you know before you get, too worked up. There's only 7 sections. I'm sorry, I didn't answer your question.
I actually saw the show at the Burlington Art Gallery, and it was
Oh, thanks.
very beautiful. And the lyrics on the paintings look amazing. That was exciting to see. Your shapeshifter paintings, what were the words underneath?
It was a bunch of stories. It was a story about my grandfather in there, which was another. There's also a belief that before a soul rises, after somebody dies, before the soul rises, if you go back to the place where the person died, there'll be a flame burning. And my grandfather was walking over a bridge home. He was walking over the railway bridge from the North Shore to Ganawage. And he saw on the Mercier Bridge above him, he saw a car accident, and the car went off the bridge, went into the water, and disappeared, and the people died in it. And he went home and he told his father, my great-grandfather, Peter Lazar, about it. He says, tomorrow at the same time, you have to go back to that bridge. And he went back to the bridge, and on the water, there was fire on the water at the same time that those people passed away. I wrote that story. I mixed stories. I didn't tell necessarily the story of the shapeshifters. So Oh, okay. Is that good enough? I was looking at your painting of me this morning.
Oh, my.
I sometimes get people who do paintings of me. I don't know why, but and a lot of them I don't know where they are. Yours is right up outside my kitchen. So thanks for that. Where were we? Number 5. Overcoming fear is just by painting everything in sight. Also, another way of saying that if you got a hammer in your hand, everything looks like a nail. If you've got paint in your hand, for me, I'll paint anything for you, anything. And so I started painting these guitars, which ended up really popular, and also it's an interesting shape to paint on for me. And this is another version of the crow ceremony. And we'll go to the next one, Lisa, and we'll see the headstock. There's the headstock of the guitar. Now, this is something I haven't mentioned yet, but this dot, I was talking to Christy Belcourt 3 days ago, and I'm actually, the reason why we're getting together is I'm filming a TV show, and I was to pick an artist from another discipline to write a song about. And I picked Christy Belcourt, and she graciously said, yeah, I'll be a part of this. This is great. And we were talking about why we do these details. Her, to a greater extent, and way more beautiful than anything I think I've ever seen in my life. My reason is because the Ganawage beadwork is known all over the world. If you go into the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto, beadwork from that reservation, that reserve, that Mohawk territory is all over, is represented there. And when I went back home for the very first time, my cousin gave me beadwork to welcome me back home. And you can see that I'm trying in my own way to honor that craft, that art that's made on the reserve. We can go to the next one, Lisa. There's an electric guitar. Once again, if you have a hammer in your hand, and the next one, Lisa. That's the back of that guitar. And we'll go again. You know what? Because, yeah, I've got to get moving here. These are paddles, and this is once again somebody. The guy who fixes my guitars, my luthier, said, "Hey," I said, "I hear you're painting guitars." I said, "Yeah, I'm painting guitars." He said, "Hey, I got a couple paddles. Will you paint them for me?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And I started painting these paddles. So once again, nail, hammer, bang. Lisa. More paddles, because you can't get enough of them. Hope you like them, because you got to look at them a lot. Okay, and we'll take another one, Lisa. Okay, we're moving into number 6. And this is, once again, I'm going to address the burning desire. I've got this guy working on my roof. He's been working on my roof, working on my windows. He gets up, I can't believe it. Like, I can't. Here's the other thing. I come from 7 generations of iron workers, skywalkers. Those guys that you see building New York, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Chicago, those are all my relatives, my ancestors. That famous photograph of those guys eating their lunch, building Rockefeller Center, the 4th guy in is my sister's great-grandfather. Most of those guys are either from Newfoundland or from Ganawage. I get nervous getting on a stepladder to change a light bulb. My brother, first of all, my great-uncle, Walter, built the World Trade Center, was one of the guys that built the World Trade Center. He was one of the guys that helped hoist the antennas into the sky up on top of the World Trade Center. And when 9/11 went down, he stood in front of his TV crying, watching all those people die and that antenna crash to the ground. My brother, Kyle, who I mentioned earlier, was in New York working as an iron worker, and they got in their cars from Brooklyn. They went right to Ground Zero, and they went to work with the firemen, going in to that burning hell and taking the debris away so the firemen could get in and do their job of putting out that fire. The Mohawks knew how to build these structures. They knew how to take them apart. And as my brother Kyle was walking through Ground Zero, working, he came across something just, 50 yards away. It looked like a missile. It looked like a rocket ship that had landed in the middle of this debris. And as he stared at it a little longer, he realized it was our Uncle Walter's antenna that he originally put up in the sky. And when my brother Kyle got a break and got to go home to Ganawake, he went home and he cleansed himself with tobacco water because he knew that he was carrying all the souls of those people that died there. So how did I get on that? Because the guy who built this was an iron worker, works on my roof, and I'm walking out to my studio like a fancy boy, right? Going out to the cotton factory to have a day spent, and he goes, "Hey, Tom, where are you going?" I said, "I'm going down to my studio." Like I said, I got a bunch of painting to do. He goes, he says, "You're lucky, man." He says, "You get to walk out the house and do that. Way to go, buddy." He said, after work, he says, "I have to wait till after work to do my artwork." I said, "Oh yeah, really? What do you do?" He said, I'm a welder. I do metal work." And I said, "Oh, I'd love to see some of your work." So we made a trade. He gave me a piece of art for the front of my house that he built. And I said, "Well, what do you want to do?" He said, "Will you paint something for me?" And I said, "Yeah." And so he brought this over. And Mark Flieger is a guy with a burning desire. He's getting a little too old to get up on the roofs now. And he's spending a lot more time welding and creating these beautiful, masterful pieces of metal art. And I find him a complete inspiration. Like I said earlier, remember I said when I go to colleges sometimes and talk about songwriting, I always think that the people out there, somebody out there might be the person that I co-write a great song with. And here's a guy standing on my goddamn roof who I now revere, who has truly got the heart of an artist and inspires me with every piece of work he brings me. Let's go to the next one, Lisa. Woo! That's the other side of that. And this is the first one that we did. We've now done 4. In fact, Mike Meyer came up from Arizona and picked one up that we did last week. So that's about 4 feet high, that one. And once again, that's a crow. That's in a law office in Burlington. Lucky them. Okay, and next. And those, that is actually the same piece, only mirrored. That's each side of the moon. And again, Lisa? I'm sorry, I might not, and there's a peace sign that he built for a guy that just brought me by a dozen eggs and left them in my dressing room. That I love. That's really, I think that's pretty cool. All right, Lisa, let's see what else we got here. This is an arrow. This, I think, sold here during your auction. Yeah. So that's you can just keep flipping on that. We get a little more detail there. There's the head. Once again, the Ganawage, honoring the Ganawage beadwork throughout this. It's an important statement for me. And once again, that's the bottom and the base, and there's still, I'm writing in there at the bottom. And one more. That's obviously the other side of the arrowhead. And you can keep going, Lisa, unless people are just dying to stare at this. And one more. All right. 7! Holy Jesus. 1 hour exactly, and I am riding home. Okay, we're going to get to this in a second. I mentioned that my goal now in my writing, in the movie that we just made, in the play that is being presented in 2023, in the second book that I'm writing, Blood Memory, that Penguin Random House put out in September 2023. Everything that I do is to bring honor to the Mohawk culture. And in doing that, I am able to understand my own identity for the first time in my life, as I never have before. This is important work because other than emails and online searches, this is what I have to really grasp my culture and to feel it inside me. It's where I want it. When my mother was a little girl, she went to day residential school. The RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, came to my great-great-grandmother's door where my mother was staying at the time, suffering from tuberculosis, and they wanted to take her away. They said, we want to take this girl away, we want to give her a good education, and we want to give her religion. We want to bring her up properly as a Canadian. And my great-great-grandmother told them to go fuck themselves. So my mother never had to go away to residential school. She didn't have to have her life threatened daily. She didn't have to be raped. She didn't have to have the complete strip away of her culture and her language. But she did go to day residential school, where every day one student would have to come up to the front of the class in day residential school and say to the class, everybody here, take a good look around at each other. Go on, because you're the last Indians this world is ever going to see. And my mother told me this story while sitting at her 80th birthday with me, her son, my daughter, and my son, her great-grandkids, and my 2 grandsons, her great-grandchildren. For generations of Mohawks sitting around the table. She was taught she was the last Indian. I put together a residential school exhibit. This is opening, this is officially opening at the Stratford Festival in August. There's a beautiful play written on residential schools, and they have a small gallery there, and we're setting up this. So, what we've done here, just to let you know, these are 9 desks, all built to scale. Anybody here, including myself, who's a little bit tubby, everybody can sit in these desks, okay? It's a piece of work that you can move right into and experience yourself. Blackboard is a film that I've made that's going to show. And if we go to the next picture, this is, we can't turn this around, and I don't know if you can see it. This is my great-grandfather right here. Can you see that okay? He's delivering peace to Parliament Hill in 1947, and that didn't really work, but he gave it a crack, you know what I mean? So what we've done is we've put images of children's families, including my own, on a row of these desks, and as you move forward in the desks, the images start to disappear until they're almost gone, until there's nothing left, representing the work of the residential school to wipe out identity. Next one. These are, this is a painting, this is a rough sketch of a painting that goes along with this residential school exhibit. These are obviously 2 nuns. I started drawing these nuns and working on these nuns after they found the first couple thousand babies found on the grounds of residential schools. I believe that we are, in this country right now, I think we're up to about 7,000 or 8,000 children that have been found murdered on the grounds of residential schools. In the colonial world believes that we will get up to about 12,000. The indigenous world, who have made their own account through families privately, believe that the numbers will get up to about 30 or 40,000 kids that were murdered. So I'm sorry if you're a Catholic, not because of this, I'm just sorry that you're a Catholic. You can go to the next one. That's more of a detail of one of the nuns. You know, you have to excuse my anger and my heartbreak. But I had to splatter blood on this nun's face. It was a statement that I felt was deserving, and if I say nothing more about it, I think this painting will say it all. And we'll go to the next one, please. And that's this is 15 feet by 8 feet, and this represents the indigenous culture breaking free of the confines of colonialism and leaving the clutches of residential schools. You can come by my studio. I got to finish it still, so if you feel like coming by and picking up a marker with me and working on it with me, I sure would appreciate it. So that was kind of a heavy ending to a joyous journey, but you know what? This is where the journey is actually just beginning for me, is being able to speak out through my art. Now I have intent. Now I honor the Mohawk culture. Now I take on issues like residential schools, murdered and missing Indigenous women, the lack of clean water, the lack of humanity in this country. I get to address those in my own way because, like I said, I'm 62. I'm not filling out my will, and I'm not picking up an automatic weapon. I'd probably shoot my foot off with it, okay? So I'm doing this in my own way, and you know, just the opportunity to be able to speak to you wonderful people today and to express what's in my heart, I feel that I've won today. I feel that this is a really great moment in my so far in 2022. I haven't been able to speak in public very much, and that's why this whole presentation has been a little shaky. I've been doing all these online lectures for universities where I actually get to sit in my underwear and do them. Which just as another side note, you got watch RuPaul, because RuPaul, even though she's in these beautiful gowns, is actually just wearing sweatpants and underwear underneath the desk. That's what she said. So that's my job now. My job is to continue doing that. And last year, 2 years ago, I got arrested as a land defender at 1492 Landback Lane in Caledonia. And I'll just read you a little piece. And I just want to tell you that the art that you make can make a difference in this world. The love that you have in your hearts is everything we need to make this a better planet. All we have to do is not only believe in ourselves as artists, but believe in the love that we have in our hearts. We've got to learn how to maybe delete our Twitter app for a little while, turn off CNN, turn off Fox News, give ourselves a break to replenish ourselves and open up our hearts every day to everybody we meet and show them generosity and respect and love. Because if we can do that, we actually will make this world a better planet. I'm going to read you a short piece here. I was born into a racial no man's land created by colonialism. Some called my circumstance the 60s scoop, where Indigenous children were robbed from their families and placed in white homes off reserves. I roamed amongst the settlers undetected in my rape-colored skin, what is referred to these days as white passing features. The Mohawk had been wiped clean from me. I was wearing a disguise that got handed down to me while I was too young and unaware to even know that I was wearing it. Decades before, my mother was sent to day residential school, where at the age of 6 or 7, she was asked daily to stand up with the other Mohawk children of Ganawagi and take a look around the room at one another, take a good look at the last Indians that the world was going to see. My mother believed that she was, in fact, one of the last Indians. And as I mentioned earlier, she told me this on her 80th birthday while sitting around a table with me, my kids, and her great-grandkids, her great-great-grandkids, in fact. She was not the last Indian. My mother was a survivor. and all Mohawk people, Indigenous people, are survivors. Through her, we stand as victims of this country's greatest sin. Canada's attempt to kill off the entire Indigenous population of this land is one of the grossest and most inhumane sagas in the history of the planet, and it continues today. We Indians, my mother, my ancestors, have been overcoming hatred at the hands of colonialism for over 700 years. So tell me now, what is reconciliation supposed to look like in this new world? Well, it looks like this today. It looks like me talking to you, and eventually you taking action. So now it's time to create a world that does not need the word reconciliation. Let us create a world we don't have to apologize to our grandchildren for. There's some trouble coming at us, a broken promise from the tower. But we don't stand for the flags and emblems. We're just claiming what's still ours. Yeah, there's trouble all around us. Police are on attack. But when we get on the Grand River, oh mama, we won't look back. Holy land, give it all back. Sit down, sinner, you've got no claim. We will always rise above your laws in our mother's loving name. Yeah, there's trouble all around us. Police are on attack. But when we get on the Grand River, oh mama, we won't look back. Yeah, when we get on the Grand River, oh mama, we won't look back. Thanks a lot, folks. And yeah, I'm gonna. You're number one on my list, baby. That's all there is to it. I just, as a disclaimer, I'd like to say this is in fact the first public speaking I've done in 2 years, and I really thank you for being here. And if you have any questions, then I'll try and answer them for you. But if you don't have any questions, even better, because it's Record Store Day, and I got to get over to Records on Wheels. But I will take your question, of course.
Okay, I just want to say my first journey with Tom was I walked into this room at the Burlington Art Gallery. The whole floor was full of Tom's work. I'd never met this man before. In walks this man, and I'm like, holy hell. I mean, it was the most moving day of my life. It has inspired me through all my artwork. The next thing I'd just like to say is, if anyone's interested, I believe you have a show on May the 14th at the Waterford Town Hall.
I do. I also should mention that my work for Indigenous issues doesn't just land on a canvas or in a book or in a song. That I've started the very first Indigenous scholarship in honor of Bunny Wilson, the woman who raised me, at McMaster University. We're hitting over $100,000 right now in donations. Well, I got to get to 250,000, and I have 1 month to do it. So I intend in doing it also. So we're also doing 2 concerts on the 27th and 28th at the R.L. Wilson Concert Hall at McMaster University. It's a symphonic show. It's also going to feature Tara Lightfoot. It's going to feature Colin Linden. And we're also going to bring Logan Statz from 6 Nations, Indigenous hoop dancers, drummers, and poets, along with a very colonial symphony orchestra. I think it's going to be really cool. Because my belief, I just have to clarify, my belief that is if we start talking to each other, if we start listening instead of yelling at each other, then maybe we stand a chance of being a greater country. That's what I have to think about. And I will, are there any other questions? Because, oh yeah, absolutely.
Tom, I just want to thank you for a super generous talk.
Thanks.
And I'm really looking at this whole thing of art for social change. And I get really worried that we're going to say, there's a change I want to make. What art can I do to make people change?
Right.
And I don't think art can come from there.
No.
You've given a gorgeous example of working through yourself and your life and meeting the world with it and realizing that is a powerful change.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you, because you're absolutely right, is that burning desire is what we have to base everything that we do off of. That will lead us. We have to take our hands off the wheel and let that desire take over. The cause will choose you before you choosing the cause. I'm just going to have some gum because I could just know my breath is so bad right now. It's so true. I mean, Banksy, I actually put too much gum in my mouth. Banksy's statements have been so giant and have affected all of us. Christy Belcourt's work on Water is Life. There's a great example of an unbelievable, detailed, colorful artist taking her work and using it for a greater cause, one that she believes in. So, thank you for saying that. Is there any other questions? Because, good. Record store day, like I said. All right, you guys, thanks a lot, and take care.